Let me know when I should count down.
Oh,
No need. I'll give you thumbs up in a second here as soon as I transition.
Okay. Okay. Oh, wow.
Start whenever you like.
Okay.
we're not gonna get anyone.
Let me share screen.
There's a mic here.
Mhm. Ready to go.
Are you sure that? I don't hear anything.
This should be on.
No, you have to press the mic, turn it on.
Testing, testing, testing.
Quiet enough.
Oops. Ooh.
Will we do a countdown?
I think we're all ready to go, Pat.
Are we live?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Welcome to the City of Brisbane Complete Street Safety Committee meeting for Wednesday, February 1st, 2023. This meeting is compliant with the Ralph M. Brown Act as amended by California Assembly Bill number 361, effective September 16th, 2021, providing for a public health emergency exception to the standard teleconference rules required by the Brown Act. The purpose of this is to provide a safe environment for the public, staff, and committee members while allowing for public participation. Accordingly, the public may observe committee meetings and/or address the committee using remote public comment options or have the option to attend the committee meetings in person. Please be advised that committee members may continue to participate in the meeting remotely. The committee may take action on any item listed in the agenda. In person, location, 50 Park Place, Brisbane, California, 94005, Community Meeting Room. Masks are no longer required, but are highly recommended in accordance with California Department of Health guidelines. To maintain public health and safety, please do not attend in person if you are experiencing symptoms associated with COVID-19 or respiratory illness. Public meeting videos. Members of the public may view the complete street safety committee meetings by logging into the Zoom meeting place listed below. Complete street safety committee meetings can also be viewed live and or on demand via the city's YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/Brisbane CA, or on Comcast Channel 27. Archived videos can be replayed on the city's website, http://brisbaneca.org/meetings. Joined by Zoom. Topic: Complete Street Safety Committee meeting. Time: February 1st, 2023, 6:30 p.m. Pacific Time, US and Canada. www.brisbanecA.org/CSSC-Zoom. The meeting ID is 843-5790-1256, and the passcode is 965159. Joined by phone. The telephone number is 1-669-900-9128, and the meeting ID is 843-5790-1256. To address the committee, when an item you are interested in appears on the agenda, you may address the committee at that time. If the matter you are interested in is not on the committee's agenda, but is a matter that is within the committee's subject matter jurisdiction, you may address it under public comment. Remote public comments. Meeting participants are encouraged to submit public comments in writing in advance of the meeting. The following email will be monitored during the meeting, and public comments received will be read into the record during oral communications or during an item. That email is tsantoyo@ca.brisbane.ca.us. Special assistance. If you need special assistance to participate in this meeting, please contact Tomas Santoyo at tsantoyo@brisbaneca.org or telephone number 415-508-2100. Notification in advance of the meeting will enable the city to make reasonable arrangements to ensure accessibility to this meeting. Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order. If we could start with roll call, please.
Cabrera, can you hear me?
Present.
Detmer? Strecker,
Here.
Tainter? Tainter?
Present.
Wadzia?
Here.
Okay. Full committee is present. We have a quorum. I'd like to move on to adoption of the agenda. And I would like to, if we could, make some changes to that agenda. But first, if we could have, in order to open discussion, if we could have a motion to adopt the agenda as it has been published.
I make an option to adopt the agenda.
Do I have a second?
Hang on. You need the motion with the new information. Don't adopt this agenda.
I thought, okay, all right. So the changes I would like to make to the agenda are under the topic of old business. I would like to move item C, review of the Brown Act provisions, to be the first item under old business. So it would become item B. Item C would be a discussion continuing on the parking project, and in particular to the committee report to council, a discussion of our report to council. That would be item C, the parking report to council. And item D would be review and discuss 2022 work plan, if there is time. That might be premature since we haven't finished the letter then completely tonight. Could I have a motion to accept the agenda as revised? Thank you. Could I have a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. Could we have roll call then on the agenda as revised?
Cabrera,
Aye.
Detmer, Strecker,
Aye.
Tainter,
Aye.
and Wadzia?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so approved. Let's move on to the minutes of our meeting on January 9th, 2022. Are there any changes, additions, or deletions that anyone saw needed to be made?
Did you ask about oral communications or whether we got anything in writing?
Oh, okay, sorry. Is there any oral communications for the public?
No oral communications at this time.
Okay. Let's move on then to approval of the minutes. Were there any changes, corrections, deletions that anyone saw? No? Could I have a motion then to accept the minutes as they've been drafted?
I'll move to accept the minutes as they've been drafted.
Could I have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Cabrera,
Aye.
Detmer, Strecker,
Aye.
Tainter,
Aye.
and Wadzia.
Aye.
Right.
Let's move on then to old business, and this will be item B, a review of the Brown Act provisions.
Good evening, Chair and committee members. My name is Ingrid Padilla, the City Clerk for the City of Brisbane. I'm here to discuss a memo that you received from our legal counsel on dated January 6th on the conduct of meetings through February 28th, 2023, and thereafter, new Brown Act provisions allowing remote meeting attendance. Hello? So just wanted to note that the legal team will host like a formal training in April. Hello? So just to let you know, the legal team will be hosting a all hands on deck training in April for committee members, commissioners, and council members. So we are all on the same page regarding this new legislation called AB 2449. Governor Newsom has announced that he intends to lift the proclaimed COVID-19 statewide state of emergency effective February 28th, 2023. And the city therefore intends to return to primarily in-person meetings at that time. So from now through February 28th, beginning with meetings on or after January 12th through February 28th, the council, its commissions and committees will conduct their meetings remotely or in a hybrid fashion. That is, council, commission, and committee members and members of the public may attend the meetings either remotely or in person. After February 28th, council, commission, and committee members will need to attend meetings in person. Members of the public may attend meetings either in person or remotely, so long as there is city technology that will allow members of the public to observe and participate in the meeting in essentially the same fashion as if they were in person. The city has the required technology. So upon meeting, a lot of community members and commissioners had some questions around what would this really look like after February 28th. So we came up with kind of a table, kind of visually represent what the memo says. So please note though that this is a living document. This is our current understanding of the guidelines based on AB 2449. We just thought this would be a good kind of visual representation of our current understanding. So this is basically a table and frequently asked questions about ways members of a legislative body may participate in meetings after February 28th. Okay, so one option is, like we said, the members can attend the meeting in person. So they had to come here, City Hall, 50 Park Place. And then for staff, meetings are able to continue if it meets quorum. Second, a member can also be absent or no show, right? So you have to check your city, check the attendance policy in the city council handbook or committees and commission policy. That's from resolution number 2013-12. I could provide that to committee members. I believe it's about like 20% of the year. So that's one option also. If you are unable to attend the meeting in person, you could also be absent or no show. So the next couple of,
We prefer you let us know. though.
yes, please let staff know if you are, because they need to meet quorum in order to be. So second, the next two are provisions that are included in the new legislation. The first one is called the just cause provision. Okay, so provisions for this includes childcare or caregiving of a child, parent, grandchild, grandparent, siblings, spouse, or domestic partner, a contagious illness, a need related to physical or mental disability, or travel on business, but it's business of the local agency, so it's not for work. The member must notify the legislative body at the earliest opportunity and provide a general description of one or more of the circumstances above. So for members, email notice is sufficient if sent to the chair, city clerk, and the staff lead. And the member provides a general description of one or more of the circumstances above. So for staff, they must, on the staff's end, okay, and then in the back, I'm sorry, keep going down. We're just gonna go through what the members are. So with this email, I'll go, keep going up, yep. So with this email, you need not disclose any private, personal, or medical information. Just cause provision is limited to 2 per year. So that's just twice per year, but that's for each legislative body. So does this committee have a lot of subcommittees? So if you have a subcommittee, you could potentially have 2 just cause provisions for the subcommittee meetings and then 2 for the regular body. Okay, so what does this mean for staff? So this means for staff that they still have to have quorum for like, they still have to have quorum for people, for in-person people. So you'll have to have at least quorum for people attending in person. Subcommittees, depending on how many members, may have 1 in person and 1 remote. But if there's more than 2 members in a subcommittee, the majority of the members must be in person. So we added those clauses. Then the staff will receive email notices from members that provides a general description of one or more of the circumstances under as we mentioned earlier. And then all votes must be conducted by roll call. Okay. And then the next provision is called using the emergency provision. So there's no limit to this provision, but there must be a true emergency, such as physical or family medical emergency, that prevents a member from attending a meeting in person. So the email request again goes to the chair, the city clerk, and the staff lead, and they could provide a general description of the emergency, which need not be more than 20 words and need not disclose any private, personal, or medical information. So the legislative body must consider the request at the earliest possible time. And so for example, there's like in your agenda items, like in after February, you'll have a standing item under consent that says approve emergency provisions. So you could have that discussion already noticed. And you must approve the request if the member is to be allowed to participate remotely. And so again, with staff, they need to have an in-person quorum, and subcommittees, they have to have an in-person majority of the members in person. And then on the agenda, they have to create an agenda that has that standing item, and then they will receive that email request from the member that provides a general description of the emergency. And then again, that the staff members also have to conduct all votes by roll call. And then the last ways,
Can I
Or-
ask questions as we go or at the end?
let's can we ask it at the end? Because there's also frequently asked questions at the end of the document. And then another way for a member to participate is by attending a meeting through teleconferencing. And this is a very old school kind of provision from the Brown Act. So this means that you could only attend via audio. So in Zoom, you'll be in audio, like you'll call in, or you'll be in Zoom, but you cannot have video because it's only by teleconferencing. So the Brown Act allows a member to attend a meeting by teleconference if the member complies with the certain statutory requirements. The teleconference location is accessible to the public and the location is noted on the agenda. So the staff members have to know prior to posting the agenda, the address of the hotel, for example, the address of the hotel where the member is staying or the member's home address. The location must be accessible by the public, and you have to contact me for other requirements, because when you're in that hotel, you have to post like a notice on that hotel saying this public meeting is going on. So on the staff's end, there must be in-person quorum again, and subcommittees must be majority in person. You have to post the location where the member will be on the agenda, will be on the notice agenda, and all votes must be conducted by roll call. So we also compiled a couple of FAQs based on how people were responding. The first FAQ, are these the same procedures for attending subcommittee meetings? And the answer is yes. The requirements of the Brown Act apply to legislative bodies of local government. So there's like a definition of the legislative, how a legislative body is defined. And under the Brown Act, it is defined to include the governing body of a local agency, any commission, committee, board, or other body of the local agency, whether permanent or temporary, decision-making or advisory, that is created by a formal action of a legislative body. This includes standing subcommittee meetings, but not ad hoc subcommittee meetings. Ad hoc subcommittees are temporary. That is, they have a defined purpose and a time frame to accomplish that purpose and are not considered legislative bodies. As such, ad hoc committees may, but are not required to comply with all the provisions of the Brown Act. The second other main questions that popped up was, what happens if there are technical difficulties during your legislative body meetings? So as long as there's interactive audio is maintained, for example, even when the live stream is down or the cable channel is down, the meeting may continue and the legislative body may vote on that item. But if there's no more, if the Zoom is no longer working, if there is no longer interactive video and audio, the legislative body may not vote on an item. However, the members of the legislative body may continue to discuss the item and ask questions. Okay, so you could continue talking about and discussing, but you can't vote on that item. And then when the technology comes back, if it becomes active, the legislative body must allow more public comment on that item before taking action on that item. Okay. And then the other question is, what if the legislative body has a need to do a site visit, a location not at the community meeting room? When meetings are held at an outdoor location, the body must first meet at its regular meeting place and then proceed to the outdoor location. So for example, for open space, they have like meetings sometimes outside to look at different habitats. So you'll start your meeting here, and then you could also then notice or stop the meeting and then go on to your outdoor location. As a practical matter, a member of the public could not attend that remotely. So accordingly, the agendas for those meetings should be clear that the meetings will not be conducted in a hybrid fashion. So there's a different way of noticing that meeting. The other one that came up is, for teleconferencing, do I really need to post the agenda on the front door or hotel room door or cooler at the beach where I'm taking the conference call? The legislature has never been willing as a body to change this Brown Act, even though it seems antiquated, or to ask for a narrow interpretation by the FPPC or the courts. So if members of the legislative body are not attending but are participating, they must follow the law and post the agenda. Next, what level of detail is required to be shared when participating in a meeting under the medical exception of the AB 2449 provisions? For the emergency provision? Are we expected to share personal health information? And the answer is no. When a commissioner cannot attend, but has a valid medical reason that allows them to participate remotely, the person must provide a general explanation of their medical reason for not being able to attend in person, as to be limited to 20 words and should not include any personal medical information protected under state law. So for example, an acceptable explanation provided they are true when given, would be, I am ill and my doctor has advised me not to leave the house until I am better. Or I had a medical procedure and I'm not able to travel at the moment. Explanations do not have to disclose your actual medical condition or your specific treatment, for example. So I hope that kind of helps you kind of visualize how this is all going to come through and how it will impact the committee. And if you have any questions, let me know. I'm available now. No, we don't, not yet. We'll schedule that shortly. The two are saying the just cause provision, like you already used up the two just cause provision. Yeah, there's, you can use the emergency provision granted that there's a true emergency, and that's also unlimited. And it has to be approved by the committee.
Ingrid, I'm curious. So for that question that, if you're somewhere vacationing and and you feel that you need to, on the committee meetings during that time, how do you provide information that you are being compliant, like, having the agenda posted and so forth?
Typically, members provide, or council members provide the location where they will be taking the meeting. So it could be the hotel room. Like we mentioned here, apparently there was somebody that did it on a cooler at the beach where they were going. But you should let staff know ahead of time, and then they will post the location of where you'll be taking it in there. And then the committee member has to post the notice also on their doorway or whatever, or the cooler, wherever you'll be, so people know that that is a location where a public meeting will be held, and members of the public can potentially come in to that room to participate.
Thank you.
But note that when you do participate, it's only by phone. It's only by audio, no video. Even though we have the technology to do that now, but it's still kind of, it's going to be maintained as is for now.
And I guess just for clarification as well, to have some sort of clarity or understanding, because
Is your mic on?
nowadays your phone is. Can you hear me?
That's
Yeah.
better.
Okay, so nowadays your phone has a camera. So is that considered a proper device to be considered good for a video Zoom conference? Because a lot of people, that's what they do. They take their video Zoom conference on their phone.
Video Zoom?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you could use your video on your phone if you're doing the just cause or the emergency. So you could participate by Zoom, right, with your phone. But if you're going to use the teleconferencing, then you just have to turn off the video on your phone, and you could just be on the Zoom on your phone, but no video.
Okay.
Do you mean no camera, but we could watch the video of the meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Can we get a copy of
Yeah.
this from you, please?
Yes.
There's a lot there to take in.
That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll do.
Is your mic on? Are you close enough to it?
Thought it was. Is it on? Can you hear me?
Yeah, better now.
Okay. For remote meetings, are there any restrictions as to location? Is one required to be within the state of California or within the United States, or?
I don't think so. As you know, if the emergency is happening elsewhere, then you could participate within that location, but you have to let, but again, the only time where you have to kind of let staff know, particularly where you'll be at, will be for the teleconferencing provision.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions?
I've heard this twice, but I have a couple of questions.
Yes.
As a matter of practice, is council just doing roll call votes all the time, just to not have any confusion about it? Is that?
Yeah, I think with this new era, everybody's just doing roll call votes
All the time,
all
okay.
the time.
And then, I'm sorry, I should have understood this before, but the in-person quorum, we have a 5 committee member meeting, so that means 3 physically have to be here, a quorum of the number 5?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And again, this is our current understanding. So once things get enacted and the legal team sees how it's like being rolled out in other cities, then we'll have that training in April. And I hope to get that to you as soon as possible, the date. And then we could all be on the same page of our current understanding of the law.
So I guess in that sense, is this a state mandate or city mandate?
It's a new state law that we all have to abide by.
Not necessarily new, just reinstated, I guess.
Yeah, well, the provisions are new because I guess they know that the technology can be there for in case of emergencies and the just cause provisions. So, when I spoke to open space, they were like, how can we advocate if we want this law changed also, or add new provisions to the Brown Act? So hopefully we'll find out more information about that if people want to advocate for new provisions, because the technology is really changing so quickly. But thank you so much for all your time and dedication, pre-COVID, post-COVID, during COVID. And thank you so much for your dedication to the work. And I hope to be in touch as we learn more on how to do this work better.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any
Thank
other
you,
questions?
Ingrid.
Very helpful.
Thank you, Ingrid. Okay, let's move on then to item C, which would be discussion of the summary report of our parking project. We've all received the draft that Karen and Tomas have put together. And I think what we might do, I thought would be to just go through this paragraph by paragraph and have a discussion as we go through it. It does seem to be broken out topically. Could we get it on screen, Tomas? Okay. So I think the goal result is community building, safe community. Is everybody in agreement that that was the goals is the goals of a parking?
There are about 5 council goals. Can you hear me?
Yes,
I gotta get closer to the mic.
I am having trouble with the acoustics in the room with my hearing aids.
There are about 5 council goals that we have to choose between. So those ones
Okay, very good.
most closely reflected what we thought
Okay,
we're doing.
everyone, we're all acceptable then? Okay.
Exactly how does community building fit into our work plan? I'm not really clear about that. Safe community, I understand, but community building. Can someone speak to that, please?
I guess in my opinion, it was sort of about, like I said, I wanted to have, the community goals are a little bit broad, so none of them are very specific, but I chose community building just because I felt, I don't know, it's it's a big thing for Central Brisbane. It's going to require a lot of people kind of maybe sharing opinions and maybe trying to work things out and get along. So no, I mean, I agree with your interpretation. It's not the most specific thing. It might be a little bit more loose, but I just felt that because it's going to be such a big change and maybe for some people difficult, that we can kind of, with this new implementation, maybe we can work something out and as a community be more open to change going forward. But I agree with you. You know, it's a bit loose.
Maybe, I'm wondering, given the objectives of our committee, whether number 2 might be actually number 1, safe.
Yeah,
safe
it's a fair
community.
point. I'd be willing to change that.
What do you guys think?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
agree with that.
Okay, all right. Okay, then moving on to purpose, to present council with complete streets safety committee meetings recommendations for a residential parking permit program to address the parking scarcity issue in central Brisbane. Any thoughts?
I think it sums it up pretty well in terms of what I thought the goal was. So yeah, I think that works for me.
Are we done with that? Is that what that means? We're done with it and ready to present it?
This will be what is present, this letter or this report is what will go to council as our recommendation.
Oh, I understand. Okay.
Barring any small changes like the one Patrick pointed out of switching the order of the importance of the goals, but yeah.
Okay. Because I think we have to have a little more discussion about the parking.
Right, so we'll work, that's why we're going through the,
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I'm thinking maybe, in my opinion, in addition to scarcity, this will also bring some sort of organization to the, to the parking. And that we have, because some people might not have a scarcity problem. They just have, organization or more. It just needs to have an orderly fashion, and this would help with the scarcity. So if we mention something in those lines, might improve it. If that's not too much to ask to staff, but I mean, it reads well. It just adds like another layer to, to say, okay, so, do have a scarcity problem, but we also bring in organization or order in areas that they don't have a scarcity problem.
maybe rewriting this to address and bring organization to the parking scarcity issue. Would that work, do you think?
Or maybe
Something like that.
simplify it to just address parking issues. That kind of makes it broad in terms of issues and also organization rather than scarcity.
Yeah, if everyone's agreed, I'm making note of all these small changes and we'll reset a draft of it.
Okay. Okay. Recommendation is adopt CSSC recommended parking permit program guidelines and or provide direction to staff. Any comments or?
Why can't they provide direction directly to us via staff? Is it the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm good.
I guess my question is, we have never taken a vote or taken a position as a committee as to whether we feel there should be a parking permit program or not. We have taken the charge that, or the request that council has given us to design a parking program, but we've never addressed the decision whether or not there should be one or not. And I don't know if we need to, but this implies that we are supporting a parking permit program. And if we do, I'm fine with that. But if we have mixed feelings about that, maybe it should be written a little bit differently.
Pat,
If anybody has any thoughts on that or concerns.
More of a, based upon the ask of the council to look
Okay.
into the parking permit program. I mean, we can look, maybe we can see about vote as well, or to see what the committee overall majority feels about the program that we're adopting, that we're looking at recommending.
Pat, I think we did have discussion about this.
Did we? Okay, I don't
Yes,
remember.
and the majority of the committee wanted to go forward with parking permits.
Okay.
Christian, I don't remember if you were here or not.
Okay,
It might have been when James was chair.
Yeah.
And I was not in favor of a parking program at all. I felt like it was more legislation in our lives, more control. But because the committee as a majority wanted to take this on as a parking and were in
Okay.
favor of parking, it was, we went forward.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure, Karen, do you remember that?
I think I do, but I wanted to say that partway through, you did ask us to go back to council and they asked you to develop guidelines. So we could, to the extent we have space, add a sentence or a phrase about that, that it also was council's direction that you develop guidelines. It's kind of both.
yeah,
Yeah, I think, that's a very good point. And I also remember, Pat, during other meetings, you talk a little bit about this just to make sure that, that what we're doing is we're learning about the other cities and we're learning about Brisbane. And then based on that very objectively, we're just saying, this is, what other cities are doing. This is what we think makes sense for Brisbane, but I'm not endorsing it. We were asked by the city council for us to do this. I mean, we had a whole agenda. They were the ones that told us, forget about that agenda. This is what I want you guys to do.
Right,
So
right.
I think we need to make that distinction that we collected all the data, analyzed it according, to us that we live in Brisbane and other people around and so forth, and then we make those recommendations, but we're not endorsing it. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that's kind of why I asked.
Can I add something, please? I don't think it's necessary to note that at all. Because
Okay.
first of all, it was handed down by the council, and second of all, we voted on it and it's
Okay.
something that we agreed to do. So it's unnecessary wording, in my
Okay.
opinion. Do you guys agree?
Aren't you gonna write something up in those lines, Karen, basically saying, the council asked us for us to do this?
Yeah, I said, we can add that, but it also was, it's both. The committee was working on it. You sent it to council for more direction and they did say, go back and develop guidelines. So
Yeah.
a phrase that says council also requested the committee to develop guidelines, I think is okay.
Well, what we sent council was not a parking permit program. We sent them kind of a public relations program, right? And council came back and said, we don't want that. We want to look at how we could do a permit program. I think.
Can I
That-
jump in too, is in that when I sent this to you guys and I said, we're asked to keep these reports to 2 pages. So there is going to be a verbal report by the committee, by the staff. And I don't know if any committee members are there. What I've seen in my experience with the council is if the committee has a recommendation through staff and they're there, the council will say, does Patrick want to come up and add anything? So this report is a general background that's somewhat limited. And I'm probably, Tomas and I are probably going to say that. Here's the process. We looked into it. We did this public relations thing. We found people wanted to change. We mulled around the idea of a permit program. We brought it to council in April. You said, go develop guidelines. Like that'll all be fleshed out in the staff report, in the verbal staff report.
Okay,
It'd be hard to put the whole history into this
I
document.
agree.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Is that sentence okay then, I guess? Okay.
Just to butt in,
Pardon me?
I recommend that we all be here when it's presented.
Yes, in person. Okay, background. The committee often reviews and requests feedback from members of the public. One of the most common requests the committee receives is for a solution to the parking scarcity throughout Brisbane. A 2021 survey implemented by CSSC and staff found that around 70% of those surveyed wanted the city to take measures to improve street parking. Parking program was favored either strongly or somewhat by 64% of residents. I think that's pretty straightforward. Reads okay to everybody? Okay. At the April 7th, 2022 council meeting, survey results were shared and the committee requested feedback from council. As a result, the CSSC directed their focus toward, I think it should say, okay, directed their focus towards having a recommendation prepared for the council to review in early 2023. As a result, I think CSSC was directed to have their focus, right? Council directed us, right?
Yeah, that's an easy one. We could throw that in. Yeah. Sorry.
Any other thoughts on that paragraph or? Okay. Okay, then discussion. Over several meetings, the CSSC reviewed and came to agreement to recommend the implementation of a residential parking permit program in central Brisbane with the following guidelines. 1, the program will be in effect throughout central Brisbane, except for private roads and the backside of San Bruno Avenue, for which no street parking exists. 2, each household address may apply for and receive up to 2 permits. Accessory dwelling units may be issued 1 additional permit. Point 3, guest parking should be included in the program, but CSSC did not decide upon a specific recommendation on the number to be allowed. Staff suggests 14 permits per year per household and 7 per year for ADUs.
I didn't-
Point
With-
4.
With that comment, we didn't want to direct council, but give them a starting point to talk about it. Well, that's why I said suggest.
Linda, you had some thoughts on guest permits, right?
I did, and I had a question actually that struck me. What about people that don't need permits, but need guest permits? Like someone who has all their vehicles off the street, but occasionally has guests. How are they included in this program? How do we do this?
That's a good question. I think
it should be in this somehow in the wording, whether we have an answer or not.
What I meant to say is I don't know if,
Well,
That-
anybody can apply for a guest permit, right? It's not exclusionary. It's not exclusive to having.
I
A
think I
household
would say I
permit.
envisioned it being related to a permit that you already had, but I don't think the council's going to slice it that thin, but maybe it does make sense to have that written
Spelled out.
to here. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it says per household, so just add whether or not that household has parking permits.
That makes sense. That
Obtains
sounds
parking
good.
permits.
Whether or not, yeah.
Yeah, that simplifies it. Thanks, Karen.
Right. Everybody okay with that? Okay. Permit program hours will be between 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. Sunday through Thursday. The program will not be enforced on national holidays. And I had to read that 2 or 3 times to really understand. What that means is it excludes weekends always and holidays always. And the reason it doesn't say Friday is because Friday night is the start of the weekend. So I had to, wait a minute, what? Is that okay with everybody?
Does it need to be spelled out which are national holidays? Like, is Easter national or religious?
And,
Actually, that's a good question. I would
And-
say Easter's not.
that's right.
We'll look into that. Maybe there are city recognized holidays or a better way to say that. That's a good point.
There are
Yeah,
other religious holidays that are not,
yeah.
that are not national holidays as well. Yeah,
I imagine we'd mirror other cities, but we can look more closely at that.
Okay, thank you.
And does California have more holidays than federal? I think
It
the
was
state
Cesar
does, right?
Chavez, yeah.
I'm curious, like if you go to different places, the Sunday is actually the day that they don't enforce, parking rules. And here, you're saying Sunday through Thursday, and you're excluding the weekend. I guess I wasn't here when that discussion took place, and you could just and build that criteria. So if I could just get how we ended up with that.
Sure. So the program
Mike,
doesn't
talking
start
on the
till
mic.
10 p.m. at night. So the
Patrick.
assumption is if
Pat-
you have visitors over say, come for the weekend, they would be leaving before 10 p.m. on Sunday night. That was the thought. So that parking from 10 p.m. Friday or anytime on Friday, all the way through to 10 p.m. on Sunday night, there's no permit required.
There was also a cost.
That's right. That's right.
It doesn't get picked up in the recording if you don't.
Okay.
give the mic.
I also think there was a cost associated with the thought between excluding the weekends with the company that we were looking at potentially contracting with to enforce it, if I recall. right?
Correct, that they were saying they would need one full-time person. They don't have people that enforce overnight. So that one full-time person, 5 nights a week would be a cost. And if we go beyond that, it would increase the cost probably significantly.
Christian,
what do
in addition to that, we talked about a lot of the events for the city being held on weekends and people coming in from out of town and the difficulty of creating legal parking for those people who are visiting for Day in the Park or any of those events. So we just decided to add Saturday to Sunday.
Yeah, I'm a little puzzled about that because, one of the reasons to have a parking permit is to be protected or not protected, have some sort of, protection on your parking. And if you open it up for weekenders, you're just gonna get bombarded. So, and then, you're just gonna have more people parking in front of you or something like that.
Do we get bombarded now in central Brisbane? I mean, it should not be any worse than it is on the weekends now.
When they are, some holidays or events, a little bit, I would say. And I guess, I would think that the city would need to redirect those somewhere. That extra flow of parking. And that's why if people are going to be paying for parking permits, they're not going to be happy if, people on the weekend are just going to park in their places, right? Because they're not per se public parking. So I'll caution about having no rules on weekends in terms of parking permit.
I think also with this one, we were again trying to mirror other cities, but also like I think Patrick sort of just said, I don't think the fact that there is no weekend enforcement would somehow bring in an influx of residents who are wanting to take advantage of free parking. I think it's very unique and specific to what Brisbane needed and what their intentions were there. So, it more or less follows what like a big city would do Monday through Friday and then Sunday through Thursday. We slightly altered ours, but I think it might work in this situation.
Thanks, Tomas. And Christian, I understand what you're saying and how important it is to consider the weekends and the respect to the people that reside here, for lack of a better way to put that. And we did work on this pretty hard to come up with something that worked for everybody without creating a big policing problem and having to have more hours of policing out there for people that are visiting our community on weekends. So I hope you understand it wasn't a flyby thought. It was something we did discuss in depth.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we talked a little bit about people parking here and taking Uber for the airport. And as some of those people, I suspect, might do it more often on the weekend than weekdays, and that was one problem we wanted to eradicate. The other thing is, families, they are going to have guests coming in. So it's going to be a competing factor, having guests and other events, sort of clashing. But as a bigger question is, the Central Park and then visitation, that should be their first option to for a lot of these events to park. And so that's probably, I guess you guys were thinking, the residents are not going to get affected. They're going to park in by the Central Park or visitation.
I mean, would the alternative be 7 days a week then? Or how would, what if we wouldn't do that on the weekends, what would we do? I'm just, I mean, hypothetical question, but like we've said a bunch of times, this will never be the perfect program. And we've kind of been always like, people are going to get away with it, of course. But that was just, I think the logic made sense. And I feel like the only other, like, would you prefer the weekends are included and 2 weekdays aren't, is my question.
A big part of this is the cost. So staff looked into the cost of a service company. If it's just the 4 nights a week, that can be covered with one staff person. It may be a rotating person, but that's one staff position of that company. If we now then add in the weekends, that becomes 2 staff people or 1.5 staff people, which means the costs of the program go up significantly and possibly put it into a realm where either it becomes unaffordable for the city or if it's a self-supporting program, then the permit pricing has to go what we thought was too high.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very valid point. And what I'm saying is 2 things, this is I'm guessing for the most part, living document. I don't think it's set on stone, it could change. So we could just see how that plays out. But as a consumer, if I'm paying for a parking permit and then there's like weekend events, and then maybe I want to go to the weekends events, but I can't even park in front of my house. That's a concern.
Christian, what do you do now when there's a weekend event?
When there's I think the weekends events that sometimes people go, and sip into the residence park could be like the garage sale, and that the city garage sale, and some of the sometimes the concert in the Central Park, and sometimes and that's because then the Central Park there's sometimes big events that people that usually park around that area have to park somewhere else. But those people will have permits,
So my question was, what do you do now when there's an event? The garage sale people move through pretty quickly. They just stop and go. Concerts in the park or some of the other events there are going to, a lot of people walk, but a lot of them don't or can't. We also have people renting areas in the park for, their individual gatherings. So I'm just wondering, how do you handle it now? Because I don't think it'll be much different.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about how every block, so to speak, is a different story or different struggle. But then within the same block, you're gonna have spaces where you could go park. So what I do now, I go and park up on the street instead of parking in front of my house. Right.
On the cross
Yeah,
street.
which is not, it's not a big deal. I consider myself still a young guy, but if you're like 70 years old, whatever, you're gonna be like, what the heck, right? So that's what I'm saying. But I'm okay the way it is. But I mean, to conclude this, it's gonna be a long night. We just keep going like that, and I apologize. I'm okay the way it is.
Greg, Darius, do you have any other thoughts?
It's good to me. I mean, we discussed this, quite a bit already, I think. So, nope, I think I'm good here.
Christian, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Well, I think, well, for me, I think the cost is the main thing for me, honestly, from that discussion we had that time. And for a cost, for what difference would it make on the weekends per se? In fact, I think unless there's the events in the park, at least from where I live, when there were events in the park, it was hard to park on the street, although I'm not necessarily parking on the street anymore. I was able to get parking inside my garage now. But when I was parking on the street, the weekends when we had events were harder, but it was just a matter of parking on visitation versus parking right in front of the park or waiting till after the event was over to move back my car. But I think my opinion on it is definitely the cost when we were talking about it, because just adding that extra day, I remember, I think we're talking like 50% increase or 100% increase in the cost, just because you have to hire 2 full-time people pretty much. So yeah, I liked it the way it is.
Okay. I think we're in consensus to leave it as it is, but maybe we can add in a thought that the city should consider some sort of event parking locations. I mean, the business park is completely empty during the Sunday concerts in the park or Saturday concerts in the park. People could be directed to park up there rather than in everybody's houses that surround the park.
Yeah, and that's a good thought, but as to adding it to the report, how about a committee member just adding that in their comments about this whole
Okay.
study we did?
Okay, that'd be fine.
Before moving on to the fiscal impact, we scroll up a little bit. I just had a question on the wording at the top of this section, given our earlier discussion. So just here, because it says we came in agreement to recommend the implementation of a parking permit program, but we talked earlier that we didn't actually necessarily agree to that. So I just wanted to make sure that wording, maybe we just touch back on that again. I guess, are we recommending an implementation of the permit program or just sort of summarizing our findings as we talked about?
I think we probably should have a vote on that. And I don't know, this is not agendized, so we cannot vote on it tonight.
Why don't I look back on past minutes, because Linda's reminding us that the committee did, and I can verify that by looking at minutes. How about that?
Okay. If not, we can,
Right, and a couple of members might have changed, but the body did.
Right,
okay.
right. And I, it might have been over a year, even up to 2 years ago. We've been at this for quite a while. When we discussed whether or not we wanted a parking program, and there was at least a discussion, if not a vote, that I recall.
Okay, so we'll start with that.
Yeah, but I mean, that doesn't mean we cannot change our mind, does it?
No, that's correct.
Yeah, so if the committee or the chair wants to revisit it, we can agendize it for next month.
Let's agendize that for the next meeting, that as a committee, we vote.
Okay, so we won't bring it to council until we do that.
Correct. Correct. I think we want to see this letter again anyway at the next meeting, right?
This draft agenda
Yeah.
report. Oh, I thought we were going to try to go on March 2nd, but we're not. Okay,
Oh,
but that's fine. We can postpone.
I don't think we're ready.
Okay.
Yeah.
Karen, just one more thought on the weekend thing. And this is mainly for the events, because it might not even be a weekend thing, it's probably like an event thing. Are currently like the farmers market and everybody that goes in the park or has an event, do they have some sort of notification to tell the people that are inviting to the event areas that they want them to park? Because that could probably, makes it easier for the people coming to the event and also for the residents, just to be, more clear, like you could park in these areas and that type of guidance.
I don't think there is anything like that. And when outsiders come to our events, which I think concerts in the park, we get people that don't live in town. I don't know about the farmers market really in particular, but maybe. I don't know how we would communicate with those people ahead of time because we don't know who they are. We're not getting their email addresses necessarily.
Well, they find out about the dates and the bands somehow, and it could just be put on that information piece, whether it's the blast or Facebook post or wherever it's put up.
Yeah.
That parking is
Remember,
available at blah,
remember
blah, blah.
the city council did, I don't know if it was draft or finalize an agreement with the Brisbane Inn to use the parking lot across the street, but the Brisbane Inn has not vacated that spot. So that was in response to not enough parking downtown for certain situations or certain times of day or events. So I don't want to speak for them. I don't know if that's going to be their answer, but they are aware and they are trying to make parking better, at least in the proximity of that lot in downtown. Just as a FYI, but
Yeah, I mean, it's typical when I go to an event, they sort of say, oh, you can park over here, park over there. I mean, a lot of the times, so maybe if they're not doing it now, at least mention it to them. Would that be the planning commission, or who is the one that does give the permit for the park stuff that happens? I mean, the events that happen at the Central Park, or
if there's city events, there isn't a permit given, but there definitely is outreach about those events. So yeah, I can pass on the comment. I think when you guys bring this up, it goes all the way back to the original committee, and it was even Bill, on the committee. And where are we going to put these cars? And I don't think that we can direct people to private property in Crocker Park, even though it's empty, unless specific arrangements are made with each business. And there's a scarcity issue. That's what this program is ideally people that have too many cars that don't need to use all of them. That's kind of the goal. You're not using the car. If somebody has the kid that comes home from college and they need the car, we're going to try to accommodate that, right? That those cars go away, and that we don't get cars that by this permit, we don't get outside people leaving their cars here and going somewhere else. So hopefully we will improve the parking scarcity issue just with this program. But I don't know if it's a simple task to say everyone that's coming to a concert in the park on a Sunday or Friday night, here's where you park, because we don't necessarily have spaces available. So can certainly pass along the comment, but I don't think it's the first time it's been made. You know what I mean? And
I'd
it's
like to
not
add to that
an easy thing to fix.
in response to Christian's concerns about the farmers market parking. It does get a little congested down there, but it moves quickly. Again, like the garage sales weekend, people stop, do their business and go. And the times that I've gone to that, I drive because I live way up on the hill. And there's always a place to park, and there's always cars pulling out and pulling in, but it's short-lived, and it's a short period of time that they're there. I don't think it's a huge impact. Thank you.
If I could suggest that we move on, if we could, so that it's already 7:40, so that we can get through everything tonight. If that's all right with is everyone on board with that one? Okay. Okay. Okay, the next point is the program will include a reduced permit fee for qualifying low-income residents. Yes, I think we're all in agreement on that. Some things that I don't see in here was that, first, we also recommended as a committee that visitation be excluded from the permit program. I think that should be listed here. Also that the first year should be at no charge. It's kind of down in the paragraphs below, but I think it's important enough to be a bullet point that the first year of implementation should be permit fee, no fee.
In the visitation area, to exclude it from the parking permit, I think in the January agenda, Darius said that they should include it, right?
Say again, Christian?
Was I believe it should be included, so.
Yeah, I think we changed the
Did we
January
change that?
meeting.
I was looking at the vote at the December meeting.
Yeah, January, we kind of went
Did
the
we
other
go
way.
backwards on
Yeah,
that?
Yeah. we went
Okay,
backwards on that.
then we need to make a note that it includes visitation specifically, I think, because that's not a residential street. Not, it is, but to some degree, but really it's,
It works with central bank.
okay, I'm sorry. I am seeing it in the notes for the January meeting. Thank you for pointing that out. Yes. So I think we should say that visitation is included. We should make that note somewhere.
Okay, I'd put that just in the first bullet point. Program will be in effect throughout central Brisbane, including Visitation Avenue, but
Okay,
excluding.
perfect.
Yeah,
What
I
about
mean,
business permits for the local businesses?
So, yeah, I mean, we talked about that, and one of the reasons I think we struggled with that one was because they are residents, it's a mixed use area. And then technically or legally, if we exclude them and they're resident, I don't know what that will lead to. So that's why I think the thinking was, let's put them in. But the other question that came up or comment that came up was, a lot of the other cities, they're having something separate in their commercial business area. So, there's a caveat there.
All right.
I think it's going to take us a year to iron out the
Yes.
kinks in this. It's
So I
not
should be
something we
free-
can
so
do now.
I was kind
final
of thinking
thing is-
something city council can mold that part
Yes.
of it.
Mhm, I
From what-
agree.
Greg just said, and Christian said earlier, this program should be a living program that can be adopted. And I think that should be a recommendation to council, that it be as lessons are learned of things not working, it should be adjusted as quickly as possible as time goes on.
I didn't check whether we're gonna need to have an ordinance to have this in place, but, we'll look into that.
Okay.
I think we could, you guys okay with just saying that verbally in the staff report that, I think
Yeah,
some of the things that we'll talk about are, the cases where an exception is reasonable will be, we're not going to,
and I think
Try to
the
make enemies
preamble
with
to
this.
that is that, I'm sorry, I can't hear. Were you still talking? I'm sorry.
no, go ahead. I was trying to characterize how the flexibility will work and that I think a little bit of it, Commander Garcia was at the meeting and he wants to be present when we bring this item to council. I think they'll be the ones reviewing these exceptions, so he may want to speak to that.
Okay. As a preamble to all of this, it's a very complex complex issue. And I think that should be in the document in some sort of verbiage. I mean, look at how even 5 of us have oftentimes 5 different opinions. And some of it is just subtleties on, we may be agreeing, but there's subtleties to differences, different subtleties to an issue. Sometimes we agree in major ways. And we're going to roll that out to the entire city. It's a difficult, it's not an easy, I mean, even though it's going to get codified into law, it's not an easy, clear-cut thing such as stop at red lights. It's not as clear-cut as that, I think.
So recommendation for a residential parking permit program to address the complex issue of parking scarcity in central Brisbane.
Okay.
How do you guys feel about adding something that says this is a live rollout and if there's problems that they will be changed, that will address problems as they come up, that it's not a final.
Well, let's think
decision.
about what we're asking council to do. Recommend the guidelines or give us different feedback if they don't approve of what's in this document, if they don't want to as a body. So it's
Okay.
guidelines. It's not an exact program spelled out. This is like how you guys envision it being formed according to these guidelines. So, and that's another thing that we can talk about. I mean, it's not impossible to add that as a sentence in here, but I think it says that by saying it's guidelines. Wondering what you guys think.
And it seems really compact, and maybe that's because this is the bottom line of so many years
Yes.
of work, but
Yes.
it just seems like this little short thing that I guess, okay, I'm good.
To achieve brevity, I think, do we really need to discuss the fiscal impact issues? I think that's pretty well defined by staff. Is any need to really go into that? Okay. The only question I had is 1,400 households. That's just the central Brisbane household number, right?
Yeah, we got that from
Okay.
Building and Planning Department.
Okay. Okay.
In terms of the cost structure, the 2 first permits are free, right?
I don't know if we really finally determined that. We were recommending that the first year be free.
The first year, yeah, we were more focused on like time versus the first units forever, you know. So for instance, while we're rolling it out, it would be 1 year that it's a trial run and there wouldn't be any costs associated with it. And then going forward, there would be costs just for everyone.
And it's the last paragraph. No one pays permit fees in the first year, or CSC supports phasing in costs. They also recommend initially not increasing parking fines, but they do support increasing the fine amount over time to improve compliance. So I guess the way this is written, it says no fees the first year, and it implies that there would be fees starting the second year, full fees. So if you wish to recommend, if you decided at prior meetings to recommend something different, please give me clarifying language.
Karen, what happens? You know, not all 1,400 households are going to need permits. Some have enough parking. What happens to, you've got an estimate here of $100 per permit. What happens to that if, say, only 1,000 permits are applied for, or 1,000 households apply for permits?
So the fee for the permit per the company, there's $5,000 one time to set up. So that would be paid out of the council budget in this formula. And the fee by the consultant is $20 for a permit, but that was, I don't have my notes, but that was the high end. There was a credit card fee. If you pay by credit card, it was $4 out of that. If you I think they were mailing permits and we're gonna do license plate reading, so it might be less, but that cost, if somebody doesn't get one, there isn't that cost. Now, the parking enforcement will stay the same no matter what.
Right.
So we also, the total between the parking enforcement and, did I write this in here? And the consultant that supplies the permits was around $70. So the extra was staff time. There's gonna be some staff time, but that would also go down if there are less permits to manage to some degree. So, it's hard to get this exactly right when you don't know how many people are gonna get permits, but we feel comfortable with these estimates.
So let me see if I understand. The service company that handles the permitting process just handles the permitting. City staff would still be involved in that. Is that correct?
Yeah, they'll have a database and all those records will be organized, but there'll still need to be some staff management of,
Okay.
and people might call and ask questions, people might have a ticket that they want to contest, all of that.
Okay. All right. Okay.
The only, I mean, I guess.
Is your mic on?
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
So their technology is that they have license plate readers, right? So I'm assuming that's probably the only way that they're going to enforce who doesn't have a parking permit. And the public itself, in other areas, they have those stickers, so they know if you have a sticker or not, and they could call it in. But in this case, there's no stickers. It's just the company providing this service. They know it because they have a plate reader. So we just rely entirely on them, and they have somebody driving on the streets all the time. Or is that how it is?
Yeah, we got a quote to have someone, I imagine it's 8 hours a day, but it's probably 8 hours with a lunch break. So it can probably encompass all of the hours of our program 5 days a week. But yes, they have someone doing that enforcement. That's an interesting thing we hadn't thought about, is that you can't turn in your neighbor for parking longer and not having a permit. But that enforcement will be out there during the times that we've asked for it. It's not just one pass a night. Yeah, I don't know if I doubt that there's a way to look up whether your neighbor has a permit or not. That's a good question. There's another piece to the license plate reading, and I might not be able to characterize it exactly right because we heard it from Commander Garcia, but there's a law, and I think it's California Vehicle Code, that's either being challenged or being considered where, does anybody else remember there was a problem with the permits that the license plate reader was an improvement upon, and I don't remember the exact details of it. And if you're gonna help me, use your mic.
I think he mentioned something about there's there was something with like if you lost your permit and you got a ticket or something like that, that it was an improvement from that. Oh, administratively or something like that. I think that's how it was. I mean, there was the aspect where with, like, for example, guest permits where you pay online and it's automatically in the system that minute that you pay for the guest or get the guest permit with the license plate reader versus having to have the stickers and
A sticker mailed to you, 7-day wait.
potential for fraud and stuff like that with stickers.
Is it possible to have both? I mean, it will make it easier for them to monitor it because, the driver doesn't have to get down or it's not going to be looking for that little sticker. But if we have both, then the public could also weigh in.
Well, he can definitely read any car with a license plate. That's not a problem. They made that very clear that it doesn't matter if these cars are close together, if visibility is messed up, that they're very much going to be able to read, the enforcers are. I thought you were speaking from a perspective of, oh, I'm gonna call and tell this person, and I thought that's why you wanted a permit. But as far as actually reading the permits and enforcing it properly, shouldn't be a problem with these automatic ones. We obviously, this isn't our business, but we spoke to all the vice president of that. That's very sure that they're very accurate when it comes to that.
No, I'm 100% clear with that. All I'm saying, if you want participation of the public, the only way would be having some sort of queue, which would be a little sticker or something. So if they do have the option to provide both.
Is that a goal of the committee to be able to have residents call in on neighbors or other residents that don't have a program? Because I thought there was some concern about, I'm trying to Google it.
Karen, might it be? I remember Commander Garcia mentioning that there's a 3 hour or the 3-day rule, and that's a separate rule.
72 hours.
Right. And so even if a car is parked 72 hours, the parking permit, if they have a permit, that would not pick that car up. So you could still call in the car and say, hey, that car is there for 3 days. And that's a separate enforcement issue that this permit program would not deal with, even though, because that car might have a permit and it just doesn't move, but those are two separate laws and are not. I believe I remember him making that point specifically because that would not address somebody who's just leaving their car on the street as long as they have a permit, if they pay for their permit or how many cars they want.
I know that. What I'm saying is, if the company could give the option of giving a sticker and they have their technology to do to read the license plate. And in terms of having the public weigh in, I don't think we had that discussion, but although Central Brisbane is small, maybe the person monitoring it might get to your street rather late, or you could probably, call it in or find out, or get some sort of attention that somebody is probably parked in front of your house and he doesn't have a permit, but you don't know if that person has a permit because you need to read the license plate. And the general public, or they don't have that ability. But if they have a sticker, then they could say, just a thought.
I don't think the purpose of the program is to be checking on each other. I mean, to be honest, our neighbors do what they do, and I think if for someone has a concern about a neighbor's car not being permitted, they could just call that one in to the police department. Hey, I think this car does this car have a permit? Rather than creating a whole structure around what might be just a few. Yes, please.
And then just another thought too is that when the guy does come around, if the guy doesn't have a permit, his job is to give him a ticket, right?
Right.
And then after that, the guy has a ticket. He's not going to.
Yeah, the job isn't to remove the vehicle or
Yeah.
fix
At
the issue.
that point, the guy has a ticket. The vehicle's not going to be removed unless it's been there for 3 days with 3 different tickets, basically, for 72 hours. The 72-hour rule.
Does that answer your concern? Is that?
I mean, in the city, there are, there's cars with permits, and then that signals that they need to be there, and because so not having a sticker, it's difficult for the public to have any idea if that car in fact has a permit or not. So we're just wondering if it's okay to have, if the company gives both options, but I mean, if it doesn't, that's fine.
Do we need to know? I mean, does the public need to know that car X has a permit?
Well, I think I personally, and from what I seen on the city, if you have a permit, and there is a little more complicated, I think, because they have signs where they have like different zones and different times where you can park here or why not. But as a city, so if I'm in the street and then I see a car parked in front of my house and I never seen it, I'm gonna be hesitant to call it in because I don't know if he has a permit or not. But if I see a sticker, then I say, hey, this person has, is legit.
I'm not sure how to.
I feel like we responded a few times that the intention is not to police. The intention is we don't want to do that, that we would like to avoid doing that, and that calling it in won't get your car removed. It'll, them leaving their car, that will get you will get them their ticket, and that's the end of it. It's not the call to get this car towed. It's just, if there's cars in front of your house, it sucks, but they get a ticket, and then that's pretty much how it goes.
May I add that you also don't own the parking in front of your house as long as it's a curbed area. And comparing our parking plan, our permit plan to San Francisco, which I imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you say the city, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. It's apples and oranges. You just cannot do the same thing here as they do there. And that's why I think possibly it's taken us this long to noodle out the nuances for Brisbane, which is very unique. So I'm ready to move on. I think we've really done a lot of work on this and I'm ready to move on. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify, when you guys are saying policing each other, I mean, I don't understand. Before there was license plate readers, that's what people did. And if this company has that option and some of the public, feel that will help them, if you have, maybe coming from a long trip and you have somebody right in front of your house and you have no idea if the person has a permit or not, we just want to give the public some options. And if they have it, good. If they don't, it's not a deal breaker.
Okay, thank you. Noted. All right. I guess you can incorporate all of that and send it out to us before the next meeting. Thank you. I appreciate that. Why don't we move on the agenda? Given the time, I would suggest that we defer item D, looking at the 2022 work plan, unless we want to look at it just real quick here to refresh our memory, but without discussion since we haven't finished the parking program yet. Maybe just put it on screen real quick. What's that? Okay. Yeah, let's totally defer it. Let's move on to new business. Is there any new business to discuss? Staff
No.
updates?
I don't have any.
Oh, updates.
I've been working on this.
Yes, enough. Any committee member matters to discuss? No, I'd like to vote at the next meeting. Let's get that on the agenda. Okay.
I did have one matter I want to bring up. There's another committee, or there's an outreach meeting regarding the Sierra Point renovation aspect. And so they'll be presenting sort of the 3 ideas that they mentioned in the last meeting, and it'll be trying to find the details right now, but it is a meeting here and it's happening, I think.
It was last night.
Oh, it was last night. Oh, sorry. I did not attend the meeting. Never mind then.
Pizza provided.
Yes. Was that okay? I guess it was last night, so there'll be updates next time after the summer
I-
meeting.
Watch the
just-
video and let
I
us
just
Yeah.
overheard that they had about 45 attendees, so pretty good turnout.
Yeah, there is, I know, plans for a second one to happen actually on site, potentially either outside or at the yacht club there, but that's still in the works, and I'll let you guys know if that does happen. Yeah.
Is there any I mean, I assume building this park is going to increase traffic coming to Sierra Point. Has there been any discussion on need to accommodate that? And that's how I go to 101 instead of going down Bayshore, but I just find that just a horrible drive. Yeah, and to go out to the marina.
I think that's sort of out of scope. I think the scope of this project is very much the edge of the marina and that sort of,
Okay.
sort of the parking lot area past all the buildings already. But that is, I mean, something that's being discussed as part of the master plan and the long-term plan, especially the connectivity to that area. And that's been brought up multiple times with, biking especially and that and sort of the connection underneath that underpass there. But yeah, hasn't been, it's not sort of in the scope of this committee, I think,
Okay.
in terms of what they're proposing.
Hello. I think it is. I think it's very important that it become part of the committee scope if it isn't, because there's a lot of new buildings going up there. You're going to be attracting a lot of families, and there's a population that lives out there on their boats.
Oh, yes.
And all of the new buildings are going to have tons of people needing a place to park. And all of these new amenities are going to be attracting people who need a place to park. And there's a limited number of parking places out there right now. It's going to become major congestion, and we're going to probably have some issues with the people that boat there. There's also the yacht club that requires parking, and the harbor master's office, and whatever else is out there. But adding so much to it, I think parking is an integral part of it, considering that that area is still growing. And I really think it should be added to our, possibly our committee, if not just your committee that you're working on for us.
Sorry, with parking is definitely part of the plan there. So currently there's a lot of parking there in terms of parking spaces, just concrete spaces that are open. And so there's a reduction of overall parking from that perspective, but there is quite a lot of parking plans, and as well as with the buildings there with the hotel and the parking garages there are plans to let people use them and plans for sort of different. Again, this is really early in the process still, so sort of proposals of what could be said. No, there's like a beach, a sort of a playland area proposal, and they're trying to see what people would want in an area for food trucks potentially, sort of parks, that sort of thing. And so it's part of the outreach for the community to see what people really want. And
Yeah. I know there's a lot of people who have wishes that they hope to find out there, but I'm not so sure that we can accommodate all of them and still not create a parking problem out there. And I think that should be an investigation in and of itself, as what can we really do and have it make sense and function properly, because there is so much commercial out there and it's going to continue to grow. And I don't know if those commercial people are providing parking, underground structures, or
Above
what
ground,
they're
but yeah.
doing. So there's, just wanted to put my 2 cents.
agree. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think Linda brings up a very good point, because and this is not isolated just to the development there. You got Oyster Point, which is a huge area too. And then, with the pandemic and a lot of those buildings were just finishing up, it's going to hit us. And so what I'm wondering is, if you have like a counterpart guy that you could talk that is more involved in the scope of managing or has more understanding on traffic or parking. And then from my also perspective, there were a lot of talks about building this, it was almost like a super bike highway. And I don't know, where that stands now.
Is that a city question maybe? I don't know.
No, that was to you, Darius.
Oh, that was not part of there's no discussion on this. Is really just isolated the parking lot way on the edge of the pier. It has nothing to do with any of the buildings, any of the roads. There's nothing to do with any of that further up. So the bike highway was not mentioned at all, not part of this. I think that's part of the city plan maybe, or it's in reference to that, but yeah, it's not part of this subcommittee.
Yeah, it's an idea in our, might be 2017 master plan, but yeah, it's one idea we have there. But yeah, I wouldn't imagine I don't think it's in this, like Darius is saying, it's not in the discussion with what's going on there. But that was something that's been thrown out before I even got here. But so I know what you're referring to, but it doesn't seem like it's part of this one.
I'd like to add, Darius, I think as a representative of this committee, and what I've always said is that when you get on this committee, you have a different eye for things that are happening around you on the street. And I would like to ask you if you will take that perspective with you to your next meeting, and just as you're eyeing the area, take take a feel about, where is the parking? What's going to accommodate everything that's out there? And then, maybe we can help. I know we're not officially assigned to help you, but maybe we can.
I mean, maybe I can forward or have the sort of draft agenda or whatever for the last meeting forwarded out to everyone for review. Is that, because that's a public document, it's part of from that meeting, and that sort of has the different plans for what's been discussed up to now in terms of including the parking, considerations. And then if you guys have additional feedback I can bring back, that'd be great. Yeah. Yeah, I guess I have to probably forward it first to you guys, or
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it's in the city documents. I can just find the link, but yeah.
But I wanted to say, this is something we could do at Complete Streets, and we did it recently at OSEC, is we had a planning staff person come and talk to the committee about the process for a development and environmental review of a development. And it's when a new building is going in or a house, the planning commission has a role, the planning staff has a role, the council has a role, and I don't want to, I'm not planning staff, so I don't want to say that I know everything about how it works, but there are definitely, there's an ordinance and there's codes about parking that's required for any development. So, I think the example of liveaboards out of the marina maybe doesn't fall within that code, but for you as a body to officially review development applications, council has to say, we want that to be a part, because there's already a body, that's the planning commission, that's responsible to review certain aspects. It's all in the law of a city and for CEQA of the state. So I don't know if that's kind of what you're getting at with developments, or you're thinking more about just activities and public spaces. It's kind of a different animal than a development.
It is a different animal, I agree. And I'm wondering if this recreation area, I'll call it that, that's being developed, shouldn't be required to look at the same requirements possibly as a new construction, since in a way it is. I'm just trying to get ahead of what the potential problems could
Right.
be out there, and that's our job. And so I just had to bring it up. I mean, I understand that there's a lot of work that goes into what you're doing on that committee and on this committee. But if we don't have foresight about that, we could regret it. So that's all. I'm done.
Karen, so I mean, some scopes, they do overlap, right? Like the planning commission might have a little bit of stuff that we might need to get involved, and the earlier the better. Or like and I did conflate the issues a little bit. I know that's the marina, but I think, at least in my mind, it's been behind my mind, the whole Baylands, and what they want to do with the Baylands is, they want to connect as much that as possible, because once it's done, right? And so to try to harmonize that huge project. So I was a little confused about the Baylands and the marina, but they might be, I don't know if they're talking to each other or connecting to each other, but at one point, there was a presentation, a little bit of presentation from us from Justin that talked about how they were going to do this highway, but this really nice bike road by 101. And the other thing that that when Linda mentioned about, this is going to do some sort of impact, it reminded me of the Oyster Point, and that's a huge development too. And next thing you know, all those things are going to bring a lot of traffic, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's just good to sort of know where things are coming from and have like not an in-depth understanding, but sort of know, what's going on. If we could try to find who will be our counterpart on those areas, might help.
I think, to my understanding, the council does want the committees, because it fits with, getting public comment, I think, to review some of the aspects of the Baylands. Like open space and ecology is, and there was a council action a number of years ago, because the development has been, being formed or trying to be defined for many years, as you all know, that said that OSEC would review open space plans, and I can find that. I'm not sure exactly what it said to complete streets, but I think the idea was that you guys would look at traffic circulation related to the Baylands. OSEC would look at open space, that would be, we have these committees with the public, we want your input. So for that development, I think it is defined because it's so big.
I think that's a few years off still before plans would come to us, right? That's still a few years off.
Yeah, I
I mean,
mean,
they're
they're
still
still,
on the
I don't
EIR,
know if
right?
they've got their draft specific plan turned in
Hmm.
yet at this point.
I had a question. There have been over the last week, there were car counting tubes out on Valley Drive, both sides, and then at least on the northbound side of Bayshore. Did you see that too? Yeah, I was just wondering.
I saw them too, and
Yeah, I
I don't
saw
know
them on
either,
Bay
actually.
Shore.
They were on Bayshore
I saw them too.
and on Valley Drive.
Yeah.
I haven't been on Valley Drive, and I was suspecting that they were part of CCAG's Smart Corridors program, but if they're on Valley Drive, that doesn't add up. So I'm not exactly, maybe they're related to the developer that is trying to propose something out of the quarry, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
And I don't want to go too far on a tangent, but I did communicate with Mario, and just to touch back on the license plate readers, he said there's case law that's being challenged in the courts about marking a vehicle, touching a vehicle. So we did, right. So with a license plate reader, you can digitally say, okay, this car was here at 9:30. We're not even using a 2-hour window, so we don't have that issue, but this car was here at 9:30 and now it's here at 11:30, but you can't chalk a wheel to make sure that that car hasn't moved.
Takes a picture or something.
Yeah, that's what it's doing.
Okay. If there's nothing else, I'd like to move us towards adjournment. Our next meeting is March 1st, which, by the way, is the day before council's meeting of March 2nd. So if we can get the,
No, it has to be publicly available.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. That's fine. Could I have a motion then to adjourn the meeting?
Turn the meeting.
Second,
I second the motion.
all by acclamation, all in favor?
Aye.
We
Any
all second the
opposed?
motion.
No. Thank you. Thank you for joining our meeting, and good night.
Thank you.